But what's happening is you have a merger that is attempting to be pulled off behind the scenes. And as I always tell people with Trump, we always like to go to the cruelty or whatever we might view as cruelty or whatever, the politics of it. But there's usually a profit motive. And that's what we saw here. I wish that Bob Iger and Disney and ABC would play the same games with Sinclair and Nexstar, which is simply say, look, you put Jimmy Kimmel back on the air, you're not getting Monday Night Football.
In this video, you'll see how these CNN MAGA pundits get exposed by Bakari Sellers over this live debate. While others were tiptoeing around the whole Jimmy Kimmel Trump mess, Bakari cut straight to what really mattered, the money. He basically reminded everyone that behind every act of Trump's so-called cruelty, there's almost always a profit motive driving it. And yeah, calling out that hidden merger drama behind the scenes, that's the kind of sharp perspective that actually exposes how deep the rot goes in media politics. So make sure to watch till the end to see how these CNN MAGA pundits gets exposed by Bakari Sellers over this live debate.
For an entire week, conservatives at this table and across the country argued that Jimmy Kimmel's suspension was solely a business decision by ABC and not at all influenced by the government. And then Donald Trump wiped it away. He again threatened ABC for bringing Kimmel back, and now his vice president is contradicting that, claiming that the administration's threats are all just a joke.
Well, people will say as well, didn't the FCC commissioner put a tweet out that said something bad? Well, compare that, the FCC commissioner making a joke on social media. What is the government action that the Trump administration has engaged in to kick Jimmy Kimmel or anybody else off the air? Zero. What government pressure have we brought to bear to tell people that they're not allowed to speak their mind? Zero. We believe in free speech in the Trump administration. We are fighting every single day to protect it.
Now, before we discuss, it's worth noting that Kimmel's return scored 3 times his average viewership on TV and 15 million views on YouTube. That's a lot of people, perhaps some Sinclair and Nexstar subscribers, but I can't imagine that the vice president is not aware of what actually happened here, because Brendan Carr's comments were pretty out in the open, Bakari. He said, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. He threatened the broadcast licenses. That wasn't said in a social media post. It was said with his own mouth on a podcast.
I just want people to understand that it wasn't just the broadcast licenses. What's happening is you have a merger that is attempting to be pulled off behind the scenes. And as I always tell people with Trump, we always like to go to the cruelty or whatever we might view as cruelty or whatever, the politics of it. But there's usually a profit motive. And that's what we saw here. I wish that Bob Iger and Disney and ABC would play the same games with Sinclair and Nexstar, which is simply say, look, you put Jimmy Kimmel back on the air, you're not getting Monday Night Football. I mean, let's play the same games, because all of this boils down to the dollar. We saw that last night. And I do believe that Jimmy Kimmel did a good job last night, and he actually preserved himself for the future thanks to Donald Trump. He is going to be on air for a long time, regardless of how you feel, thanks to Donald Trump.
I think Disney deserves credit. I mean, look, I work for ABC News, but I also think that Disney deserves credit for putting him back. Look, I'm someone who got canceled, right? I hosted a show called Live PD. It followed live police departments around the country. It was the #1 rated show on television. We got canceled in the wake of the George Floyd incident. Why? Because people who didn't support the police decided this is a time to get rid of any kind of live policing show. I am very surprised that he was able to get back on as quickly as he was, because I will tell you, we had to sit on the sidelines for almost 2 years before getting back again. Wasn't a business decision. This was the #1 show on Friday and Saturday night.
It's a great show.
In the demo.
Richland County Sheriff's Department.
And you got screwed by anti-police.
We got screwed by the anti-police, and now it's called On Patrol Live. Now it's on Reels. It's back. But my point is that it takes some guts to be able to step in after suspending someone and then say within a week, we're going to put him back on, which is why Trump is so angry about it, because it feels to many people like a slap on the wrist, which it is.
You could tell Bakari wasn't buying any of the surface level spin around Kimmel's suspension. Instead of wasting time debating whether it was a business call or some overreaction, he went straight to the core, the money. He basically said, look, this isn't just about Trump being petty or cruel. There's always a profit angle buried in there somewhere. That's the kind of take that actually cuts through the talking points, because he's right. Trump's moves are almost never just emotional. They're transactional. Then when Bakari brought up Disney, ABC, and Sinclair, that was him flipping the script. He wasn't calling for tit-for-tat politics. He was pointing out how the right plays this leverage game in the media world while the so-called neutral players just sit back and take it. Like, he was basically saying, if you're gonna cry free speech while threatening networks behind closed doors, don't act shocked when people start calling that out. And the thing is, he wasn't even yelling. He just laid it out like someone who's seen this story play out 100 times. Politics dressed up as business, money dressed up as morality. That's what made it land so cleanly.
Well, one of the interesting things about that example, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that was their concern about the public backlash to that show being on the air, right? One of the points Jimmy Kimmel made last night is that the government's involvement in his suspension is not really so much about him, but about the free speech principles. Listen to part of his monologue from last night.
This show is not important. What is important is that we get to live in a country that allows us to have a show like this. The President of the United States made it very clear he wants to see me and the hundreds of people who work here fired from our jobs. Our leader celebrates Americans losing their livelihoods because he can't take a joke. The government threat to silence a comedian the president doesn't like is anti-American.
Yeah, so, he's drawing a clear distinction there because, obviously everybody faces pressures from their viewers. Disney did with Dan's show.
That wasn't Disney, but yeah.
I apologize, but that show, and they're facing it now with the viewers, but they're also facing it from the president, and that's the
But it's not necessarily the viewers, let's be clear. It's not necessarily the viewers. A lot of the time it's the executives who are feeling the pressure, not necessarily the viewers.
But I think, the conservatives have been feeling this for a lot longer, so I totally hear what you're saying. CNN's own Brian Stelter went on and said the same thing about Lou Dobbs when he was let go. It's a culture of consequences, not cancel culture. So we have, been in that situation before. It's an executive decision. Look, I think Senator Cruz has been the best on this topic. Senator Thune joined him today talking about, the freedom of speech and basically saying, Carr misspoke or, was wrong what he was saying. So that's where I'm looking to for on this issue because I think they've been brilliant on it and really handled it the right way. And look, the market will decide. I personally don't think Jimmy Kimmel was very funny. I think last night was the best night of his entire career and he probably won't have another one like that. I still think Fallon's more funny and all the other guys are more funny. So I don't think he, if his ratings stay and he stays on air, then great. If they fall and he gets replaced,
I think there's two things here. One, he used in his monologue last night, Senator Cruz and I, we host a podcast together. And we both took a lot of heat for our position, which is we're in favor of free speech, period. I think there's been a course correction with the Trump administration on this. I like that. I was willing to speak out. Senator Cruz was willing to speak out. We were saying you don't use the FCC and weaponize it to shut down or silence people you disagree with. I will always stand by that, even if I take heat for it. What I didn't like about what I saw from Jimmy Kimmel last night is the fact that he has more passion for this issue than he did for showing compassion for Charlie Kirk's widow and the Kirk family. And then he says it was just a joke. I think it's sad that there was this much rallying around him emotionally as he got last night and still refuses to show any compassion to the Kirk family.
Let me just what he said before, though. But 2 days before that, he denounced the people who are celebrating. He went after them on his show.
But he lied on his show.
He got it wrong, no doubt about it.
No, he lied on his show.
But he also talked
and we
about,
knew what
but
was.
last
what
night,
we, hold on, wait,
did you see? But did you see the part of the reason I'm interrupting you is because did you see the part of the monologue where he talked about Erica Kirk? He choked up when he was talking about her speech at the memorial service.
I'm sorry.
I understand what you're saying, but
I
think to suggest that he was cold.
He was cold
to the Kirk family. I don't think is
it
accurate.
wasn't warm.
Ben Ferguson really went off track here. Like, the conversation was about the Trump administration threatening a comedian's free speech, and somehow he turned it into a pity rant about Jimmy Kimmel lacking compassion. That's not even the same lane. You could see him trying to emotionally redirect the whole thing to make Kimmel look like the bad guy instead of addressing the fact that government officials literally made threats over a joke. It's classic right-wing pivoting. When the facts aren't on their side, they go for feelings. And honestly, when Ben said Kimmel lied after the clip clearly showed him getting choked up talking about Erica Kirk's memorial, that just came off bitter. Like he's not debating anymore. He's nursing resentment. Even the host tried to give context, pointing out that Kimmel did acknowledge the family, but Ben just kept doubling down. It made him sound more defensive than confident.
This is the delusion of this conversation. He literally said that he was killed by somebody that was in MAGA. That was a lie. We knew that wasn't true. And he refused to apologize.
Let me ask you
real men with integrity walk out there and say,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
So has Don Jr. and Elon Musk and Senator Mike Lee apologized for saying that the Minnesota shooter was on the left?
I don't know if they have or not.
Okay, they haven't.
They have not.
So my point is, it's the exact same thing.
I'm okay with that. But Jimmy Kimmel, I think you can agree, this was a bigger issue at the moment.
That's it got more attention.
A lot more. He was crying on set.
But this was also a political.
He's crying on set.
Minnesota's
not
relevant.
crying for Charlie Kirk.
But not
or
only
his
Minnesota,
wife.
but not
crying
only
because
but not
woe
only,
is me in my career.
This is why this somewhat falls on deaf ears, because this is why those individuals who are not Democrats or Republicans find all of us to be full of it. Because the simple fact is, Don Jr. had a picture of a hammer in underwear after Nancy Pelosi's husband was attacked in his home, right? And so when you have individuals who do that, and then you say you have all these other talking points about people chanting and celebrating Charlie Kirk's death on the left, and you don't really give a complete look at the voices who are saying that we condemn that. But let me just say,
lie about it, though.
But if you want to talk about the lie, I mean, look at everybody on Fox News who lied about 2016. I mean, is that the barometer?
Let me give Adam a second.
I agree with Bakari. We should look at the full picture. If you want to talk about Erica Kirk, she said she doesn't hate the other side. Then Donald Trump came on stage right after and said, I do hate my opponents. This is the president of the United States, not some comedian. And by the way, it is so incredibly clear that Trump is pulling every lever possible to make sure that everybody consolidates around him ideologically, whether it's with Jimmy Kimmel being pulled off the air, whether it's with Comey. I mean, I did the research. Donald Trump's priorities are so off that he has mentioned Comey on his Truth Social 2,042 times.
Yeah,
how many times do you think he's mentioned?
How
many times has he mentioned inflation? How many times has he mentioned inflation?
Well, when you fix inflation, you don't have to mention it.
He did not fix it, and he's mentioned it. He's mentioned it half as many times as Comey.
You're just wrong.
He's mentioned inflation half as many times as Comey on his Truth
because
Social.
he actually
because
works
his priorities
on it.
lie in petty vengeances. Ben, let me finish.
Go back.
His priorities lie.
Ben,
we're talking about inflation right now, not about Jimmy
petty
Kimmel.
I'm just letting him finish his point. Then we got to.
I'm just trying to say Donald Trump's priorities lie in petty vengeances, going after Comey, going after Kimmel, and he's not fixing this tariff mania. Right now, unemployment is up.
Is the economy good or bad right now?
We're going to leave it there.
Tariffs are making it worse.
So Bakari and Adam Mockler wrapped this up on point. While the right-wing panelists kept playing victim and twisting emotion into distraction, Bakari called out the hypocrisy flat out, and Adam backed him with straight numbers and receipts. Trump threatening a comedian while obsessing over Comey thousands of times, that says it all. The so-called free speech defenders exposed themselves the moment they started excusing government intimidation because it benefited their side. It's wild how fast these MAGA pundits flip from free speech warriors to apologists when the truth hits close to home. That's the bias Bakari was talking about, the one that hides behind outrage and moral posturing instead of owning what's real. And speaking of biases, are you getting tired of biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and the other says the complete opposite. How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, whether it's left, right, or center, are covering the same story, so you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get a 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights in media bias and political trends. So stay informed, think for yourself, and check out ground news in the description down below.